Hey everybody, welcome to Pushing Buttons, the part of the Geek Freaks Network that's all about video games, and I think I'm going to leave it at that this week because that's all you need to know about us. My name's Kevin.
And I'm Kyle.
We're back to the two-man OG group here. No Frank this week. How have you been, man? What's new in your life? What's new in your world?
Well, aside from, making a totally life-changing move.
Right. Besides that.
I haven't really been doing too much lately. I kind of just been going through my old games. As you can see behind me, I got several collections of
crazy
totes, and each tote is its own console plus the games in it, except for my 360, which is over here on the far right, I guess, or left on your screen. I can't tell. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun going through everything and just seeing how much I had, which is, really shocking to me.
Nice.
Like all the stuff that I've collected over the years and getting to hold stuff again feels really good.
Nice. And it's stuff that you're wanting to hold on to as your, how did I put it? Someone can look at it and understand who you are collection.
Like we discussed last week. Yeah.
Awesome.
There's a lot there to unbox and organized, and it took me a couple of good days to get through it all.
Nice.
But it was a lot of fun.
That is always fun. I didn't have nearly as much as you. I've recently gone through my Star Wars book collection that was on this shelf, and now is kind of split up between two different shelves. I have the stuff I'm gonna keep and the stuff I'm not gonna keep, and yeah, we'll see how that goes. I'm excited to see if I have anything that's like super valuable, or see what I can make of some kind of money off of it. That'd be nice.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see how that goes.
Yeah. So normally whoever leads the episode has a question for the other person, but I don't have a question for you this week, Kyle.
Well, I kind of thought of one just now. Like, I know you and we don't really see eye to eye on stuff.
Hence the podcast.
Hence this episode's title, by the way. But yeah, before we get into that main topic.
Oh, what are we talking about today? We should probably point that out too.
Well, us being mid-30s gamers, there's certain games that we don't enjoy, but everyone else loves. So I thought, actually, you thought that it'd be fun to talk about that. So yeah. That's what we're going to be discussing later today.
Heck yeah.
And, in the past couple weeks, I've been going through all this stuff and reminding myself of what I enjoy. And I was thinking to myself, if there's one game from each other's collections that we could give to the other person, like what would that be for them to enjoy and why?
So me gift to you from my collection, you gift to me from your collection?
Exactly, yes.
That's a tough one. Because I don't have that much.
Well, let's say if you don't have it yet and you want to get it for me as a gift, or vice versa. Or if it could be like even something from your Steam collection, if that makes it easier.
I think that makes it harder. You've seen my Steam my Steam collection is not manageable. It's 1,000+ games. That's way too much. Way too hard.
It is a lot, yes.
Do you have an answer for that question? And I can try to get my gears turning for an answer.
So I was going through one of my totes, and I actually found, when I purchased Guitar Hero Metallica, there was a sticker set that I still possess that's like complete.
Oh, really?
And hasn't been used or anything. So the stickers are all in really good shape. And that's true for all of my Guitar Hero collections, or each of the games and the guitars. So I was thinking I could give you that sticker set.
I gotcha. That would be cool. I know I still have my Guitar Hero Metallica. I don't remember if I opened it up to see what I had in there. But knowing me, and you know how we were back when Guitar Hero Metallica came out, I probably stuck those things all over the 360 guitars and on the console itself, or maybe even on my computer tower. I don't know. That's kind of cool, though. I didn't even remember that they came with those, so that's awesome.
I totally forgot, and it was a huge surprise. Like, even for Guitar Hero 1, I still had the complete sticker set.
Nice.
Not used at all, so I was like, holy shit, that's cool.
That one also came, if you pre-ordered it, it came with an extra bass pedal for the drum set.
Oh, I
And
didn't know that.
yeah, that's how I got the double bass pedal going on back in the day, was from pre-ordering Guitar Hero Metallica, because I think it was the first one that had the necessity for double bass pedals. So that was cool. I think I broke several of them.
Hmm.
I
Yeah, we definitely thrashed and
yeah, pissed off some of my neighbors back then. I'm thinking, honestly, I think the only thing that I have that you don't, that you would like, is my Pokemon Fire Red.
oh, okay, yes.
Because I know you've mentioned that before.
I played the original Red on Game Boy, and it would be cool to re-experience the remake.
Yeah. Do I still have it sitting here? I just scared my
I
dog a little
wish,
bit.
yeah, I wish I could just pull mine out, but they're all in totes.
Yeah, I do still have, it's complete in box. It's a little damaged on the bottom. I think I pulled it out on a couple of podcast episodes now. Um yeah, this will probably be going up for sale sometime in the near future. I'm not 100% yet on whether or not it's going to wind up for sale or not. I kind of want to keep it just to see if it'll increase in value, but I may need to get rid of it to get some of that money. So we'll see. But yeah, complete in box. It has the poster and everything in there, which is really cool. I'm not big on hanging up posters anymore, as you can see from my bare walls here. But back in the day, like in the Guitar Hero Metallica days, my bedroom had posters all over it. I remember I had my Cake is a Lie poster. I had my Sin City Jessica Alba poster. It's just some memorable posters from back then. Yeah, so I kept that poster in the box, and that complete in box set. And I was going through my old DS games, and like Chrono Trigger still has the original poster in there, and like my Fallout New Vegas Collector's Edition strategy guide has the poster. I can't say poster. Why can I not say poster? Poster.
That is weird.
Anyway, well, today we're talking about, as Kyle's already mentioned, we're talking about games that everybody else seemed to like that we just don't. And I'm going to kick things off with one of the biggest and probably most egregious entries on my list personally, and that is The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild.
Oh, really?
I did
Interesting.
not
Okay.
like that game. I
Hmm.
enjoyed traversing the open world, but that was literally the only thing I enjoyed about that game. The
Well,
Everything else was just so open, bland, and boring, and weapons breaking, and the controls, and like the rain making everything slick. I didn't care for that. The puzzles were lame. It was the least Zelda game I've ever played, and I did not like it.
I can see your point of view. I personally like the risk they took. I think, going from a linear experience to an open experience, the development team behind Breath of the Wild like really took some gutsy chances with the Zelda formula. And, not all of them worked out, I agree. However, what really set it apart for me, more so than the traversal and the environments and all that, was just the potential of what we can get in the future. And we've seen kind of something similar with Elden Ring, like how you can naturally uncover like dungeons in the open world and stuff. And was Breath of the Wild didn't do that so much, which was a bit of a disappointment
Yeah,
in that regard. You just had the four main dungeons with each of the I can't remember the names of them now, but the ancient beasts or whatever.
right.
And they were giant colossus type enemies that would walk over the map that you had to figure out a way to get inside of, which was pretty cool, but I don't think it would necessarily be a good choice going into a sequel. And I'm hoping they kind of diversify the dungeons a bit more and make them, each representative of the areas that they inhabit. And that'd be really fun to kind of just like say go into a deep cave dungeon or go into like a really high plateau, like wind based area, stuff like that. I think that would be one of its major faults.
Yeah, even the smaller like little puzzle dungeons that they had, little caves or whatever they were, those were some of the most lackluster puzzles in video games to me. They only were there to give you a couple of treasure chests, which I understand. It's an open world game. How are you going to do that? They it seemed like they took the easy way out on all the risks that they took. Like they could have fleshed out some more of those systems a lot better to make it more of an engrossing experience rather than just this is the open world Zelda, so here's all the open world tropes that you're used to in the most simplified Nintendo way possible. That's how I viewed the game, and that's what I didn't care for it.
No, I agree. I think there are definitely some drawbacks to what they took by focusing on this direction of the game. In particular, I didn't really mind the traversal aspect of it too much. I mean, there were times like you mentioned, like when it would rain, you while climbing, you would slide.
Yeah.
That was really annoying.
Yeah, you just have to
Like that
freaking
drove me nuts.
wait out the rain.
Yeah, that in particular was really annoying to deal with. But I loved going up to the air and using, I think it was like the glider,
Hmm.
and how different aspects of natural discovery would lead to new forms of transportation in the open world. And yeah, the weapon breaking does suck. I agree. But I think it allowed for more experimentation because usually you find your weapon, like say in like a Souls like game, and you stick with that build. And you can't really do that in Zelda. You have to always be looking for something to use in case your weapon does break. And it does lead to interesting player choice, I feel like.
Yeah, I the way that they normally get that player choice or that player choice, normally the way they get that diversification of equipment in a Zelda game is by like having the fire temple where you have to wear the fire resistant suit and you have to have a specific shield and weapon to be able to interact with specific puzzles. Just having to change weapons because there's a number on there that means nothing means you can only hit something a certain amount of times before it breaks. I don't know. It felt like the easiest way to do a durability system, and it was just a time sink for the sake of it being a time sink.
That's true. I think I put almost 200 hours into Breath of the Wild,
Oh
but
my
it
god, that
was
is too much.
well, from my point of view, I just loved discovering like the secrets of the land that you get to explore. I think that was the most fun aspect of the game. Like more so than the combat or the dungeons or anything else. Just roaming the open world
Right.
and just naturally uncovering like I think Korok seed puzzles. Like I love doing that. It was really fun.
Yeah, like I said, that was the one part of the game that I did enjoy was the open world exploration, and the Korok seeds were fun. I always liked even the original Assassin's Creed to some extent with the flags everywhere. I liked collecting those, so I like the collectathon aspect of it, which is why I love Super Mario Odyssey. That's what that
Mm.
game is to me, is the most addictive collectathon that there is, and I love that. But what do you got on your list? I think we talked about Breath of the Wild for a little too long.
No problem. You know, funnily enough, I have survival games in general. Even
Okay,
though I love Breath of the Wild, I don't like survival
I
games at
gotcha.
all. This is like Rust or No Man's Sky or Don't Starve. Like I just cannot get into those games at all.
It's funny that you gave those three as examples because they are very different games from one another.
They are, yeah. I think for Rust, it was like a Twitch phenomenon. I think sometime last year, and everybody was playing on the what was it, the OTV
Offline TV, yeah.
server?
OTV
Yeah,
server, yeah.
and everybody was streaming it, and it looked fun. But when you and I played it together, it was drastically different
Yeah.
from what we were watching on stream because we didn't have that community to build off from.
Right, we had to play with
So
randos online.
random people, and it was not enough to hold my attention. Like there was one particular guy I think you and I ran into who was like trying to help us.
Yeah, that guy was funny though. Like you
That
run
guy
into
was great.
you run into those kind of people, but for every one of those, there's 10 of the jackasses that are just trying to spawn kill
That
people.
just Yeah, exactly.
Just there
That's
to
what
grief
happened
you.
a lot. That was the shame because I really wanted to get invested in it, but because of the way it's structured, you have to rely on other players not to, you know, grief you
Right.
in order to make progress. And unfortunately, that's a lot of the online community today. They just love to live out those fantasies of being a jerk.
Yeah.
So, this is going to be a common theme, by the way, of games everyone likes but us.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
I have that feeling as well. A lot of it's multiplayer. At least the easier ones for me to think of were all multiplayer games to some extent or another. Um, So, what about No Man's Sky? Because you mentioned that one as well. There's hardly any
Yeah,
multiplayer in that game.
in classic pushy buttons, I talked about this because we tried to give each other games that we would try and talk about, and that was my game was No Man's Sky, and I just could not get into it. I borrowed Robert's copy of it for I think PlayStation 4,
Mm-hmm.
and what really set me off from that is just how like muted it was, like in regards to gameplay as well as your path of progression, because it was just like drop you in the middle of nowhere. Okay, here you are. Here's your ship. Go find stuff to get it working again. But it didn't really tell you how to do that. It just kind of threw you in the middle of just trying to figure out on your own, which is great and all. Like I get it. That's the whole point of a survival game. But I just don't like entering that kind of situation. That seems kind of stressful to me.
See, that's how Elden Ring felt to me. Was
Which makes
exactly that
sense.
situation.
Well, Elden Ring, I would argue, like you can, make progress as you play, but it's more due to your own tenacity. And I guess you could apply that to No Man's Sky as
I
well.
would, yeah.
But I just don't like that gameplay loop of like, going out, getting resources and, collecting it using a really slow method. Like after playing Minecraft, it was so hard to even think about No Man's Sky or other games like it because Minecraft does it so freaking well.
Yeah. Um, I
And
kind
I
of,
think I played Minecraft after No Man's Sky.
yeah, yeah. I kind of look at Minecraft and No Man's Sky kind of in the same vein as one another because they're both very open-ended games. You can kind of do whatever you want in. My biggest problems with No Man's Sky were in the interface, the UI, and in the like the inventory management and how upgrading weapons and ship stuff went. Even the dialogue was kind of useless. They've fixed a lot of stuff in that game, and even the stuff that you talked about is a lot better now than it was back then. But I definitely hear where you're coming from with that game. I still put that on a different level than Don't Starve, though, which is the third one you mentioned there. Don't Starve
Yeah,
is more of just a
that's
cute version of it, but with like Lovecraftian horror elements and uh, trying to survive the night without, starving, essentially.
so Don't Starve. The reason why it caught my attention was because it was streamed a lot back when it first came out. This was like nearly 10 years ago, I think. It's an old game, like 8 years, maybe 10.
Yeah, something like that. I
But
don't, maybe not 10. It's old though.
mhm. Yeah, it's definitely showing its age now. But Lovecraftian horror, and it looked like it'd be something I'd enjoy a lot. But I just don't like the gameplay loop of having to go out and collect resources to build a camp just so it'll get erased later down the road. Like to me, that doesn't seem fun for some reason. And I think a lot of it is the UI, like you mentioned, for No Man's Sky. Like I can't grasp those systems very well for some reason.
When you say that it'll be erased later, are you talking about like in your next playthrough, or what do you mean?
Well, that I would say that is a huge contributor to how I feel because from game to game, it's not as fluid as say Isaac or a roguelike where you just pick up and play.
Mm-hmm.
You have to invest a lot of time into it. And I think that's the reason why I kind of take a step back from that genre in particular.
Okay. So, would you feel the same way about like real-time strategy games then for the same reason?
Actually, yes, that's on my list as well.
Okay.
RTS.
Okay.
And I used to love RTS as a kid. Like I played the shit out of Command and Conquer and Red Alert 1 and 2 and StarCraft. But I've yet to play StarCraft 2 or really any of those 4X games like Civilization or Total War, that kind of stuff. I just can't get into those.
I don't know why, but the only reason I can is when I play Galactic Civilizations because of the sci-fi like environment. I
Hmm.
don't know why it is. Anything I'll almost try any genre of video game if it's a sci-fi version of that genre.
Oh, okay. So if it was a sci-fi Souls-like game, you would play it.
I did play The Surge.
The Surge. Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
I did play that. I
Good.
still didn't like it. The gameplay loop was just too boring for me. But
See, that's fascinating. Yeah, we just have different tastes and they
very
translate differently.
yeah. I also don't like any fighting game, and that is
Oh, okay.
especially true for Smash Bros.
Hmm.
Especially true for Smash Bros.
I've tried so many times to get you to play, and you
Yeah,
just were like, "Nope,
I
don't care."
I don't understand, and I know the guys over at Round Three would probably be great people to talk to as well. But I know you have a lot of experience with Smash yourself. But I see the appeal of having all the characters from all the different Nintendo properties in one game. But fighting games just don't do anything for me, and it seems like the community is built around. This is the part that I think Tyler and his guys could probably from round three could talk to me a bit more about. But it seems like the communities that get built up around online fighting games or even in person fighting games, it's it can be in my experience, it's been toxic. Like if you're not good, you don't belong, and it's probably not true when you're getting on a competitive level going to tournaments because everybody it's like going to a GDQ. You know, everybody's welcoming and wants to have other people like them there. But when you're separate from that, from like the competitive version of it, I don't like fighting games. They just bore the crap out of me once again.
Yeah, in particular, for Smash Brothers, anyway, I've always seen that more as a party game than a fighting game.
See, I don't like Mario Party's on my list too.
And yes, that's another one I was going to bring up as well. Not for me, but for you.
Yeah,
Party games in general,
yeah.
board games.
Yes. Not a board game guy, not a I can
I
get down with
know.
some Jackbox from time to time, but even then it has to be super limited for me to be able to enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, like party games are, I enjoy them immensely because I've always played them with my younger brother, and for him and I, that's you know our bread and butter. When we
Right.
were kids growing up, we were always playing Smash together or Mario Party, and always had a good time doing so. But I know for you, you didn't really have that as much, which I think could be a major contributor why.
Yeah, I mean my
But
brother and I did play games together, my older brother and I. We did play a lot of video games together, but we tried to stay away from the competitive ones because it always led to a fight. It seemed like. So, as siblings tend to do.
I love what fighting games are and represent, but I just don't have the skill. I feel like I don't have the skill to really become proficient at them. Like I did try playing Super Street Fighter 4 on the 360 and Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. I even bought a arcade stick for it, and I actually was trying to learn combos and stuff, but it's so complex. Like especially when you involve another player fighting against you. Like against an AI, it's not too bad. I can really, enjoy myself that way. But I guess as a person, there's just so many more elements to it that make it like, whoa, this is too much for me right now.
Yeah. Um, in the same vein as that, I am going to categorize all battle royales. You got Apex Legends, you got your PUBGs, you got your
Yep.
Fortnites, all
Yep.
those games. All battle royales are just even Call of Duty War
Warzone.
Zone. Yeah, I almost said Warfare, but that was Modern Warfare. Call of Duty Warzone. All of those BR. The only one that I would be even halfway tempted to play would be one of the cutesy little ones like oh shit, what is it called? Like Animal Roy. I don't know. There's like a little free flash one that it's just a cheap looking little BR game that got kind of popular with some Twitch streamers, but it's more fun, less real. I don't know what it
You
is about BR
you
games.
made me think of an Animal Crossing battle royale and how that would look like.
Okay, so hear me out here. It's not a battle royale, but it is an Animal Crossing survival game. So it's Animal Crossing meets Rust, and it sounds like the
Wow.
perfect game for people that hate themselves. So if you, it's a very very toxic shit show of people trying to get around and like live Animal Crossing in like an MMO style environment, and people that grief like on Rust. So it's bad. You should check that out. It's definitely it's an early access on Steam, but it's not good. Sorry, I kind of got off on a tangent there.
No, no, that was great. I've actually that was a really neat idea, like an Animal Crossing battle royale. What would that consist of? Maybe that would get me to play a battle royale.
I kind of doubt it. Okay, you would
Well,
probably try it. I would imagine you would give it a shot.
it's crazy because, back when I was a teenager, I loved competitive shooters. and not including battle royales, but games like Valorant or CS:GO or even just standard deathmatch Call of Duty or Halo. Like I just could never get into that stuff. And it was fun for a little while, but I would always just lose interest immediately after like a couple hours or
Yeah,
so.
I hear you.
And with battle royales in particular, like I really wanted to get invested in that. And I still think if there's a SOCOM battle royale, I would be all for it because I loved SOCOM
I can't
as a kid.
believe they haven't done that though.
I
SOCOM was
know
huge on the PS2. It was one of
it
the
was.
biggest PS2. It was probably the biggest online PS2 game.
I would say it easily, aside from Final Fantasy 11.
Right.
But yeah, it's amazing that that hasn't been reiterated upon that franchise. It's a shame that's dead now.
Yeah.
But if it were to come back, I'd probably pick it up and try it just for the fun of it. But that was like the last time I was really competitive with online gaming, aside from MMOs and stuff.
Well, there's also games like Heroes of the Storm and League of Legends, all the
MOBAs.
Dota, all the MOBAs. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
I can't handle them. I remember when I was working at Target back in the day, I was talking to one of my buddies that worked there at the time. We were talking about Bastion from Supergiant Games, and that was the only indie game at the time that he had any experience playing. And I was like, oh shit, yeah, Bastion's okay, but have you seen this? And I think it was before Transistor came out, but I had like there were screenshots and videos of Transistor, and I'm like, this is gonna be Supergiant's best game yet. And at that time, Transistor ended up being their best game yet. But he's like, have you played any MOBAs? And he was trying to get me to play. I can't remember if it was League of Legends or if it was Dota. And I'm like, I can't do it. He's like, just try it out. You'll like it, man. You'll like it. And I'm like, maybe I'm just too hard headed, but this was probably 10 years ago and I still haven't given it a shot and I'm not going to. Is that bad to say? Like there's even that
No,
Pokemon one that a lot of people
you're
were
good.
playing.
MOBAs, I just can't. It takes way too much coordination. Like you have to find four other people or five other people to play with, consistently to build a team to rank up in, and you're just chasing this. I can't even like describe what they're chasing after. I guess it's just ego at that point.
Well, I mean, that's the same way with any online competitive game. It's just that it seems to be less of a point and more toxicity around games. Like I'll put MOBAs in the same vein as the higher play or the more popular FPS like arena shooters. When you got your Call of Duties, Overwatch, specifically Overwatch, that game I can never do that. Valorant to some extent, CS:GO. I used to play CS:GO. No, not CS:GO. Sorry, CS 1.6, and then a little bit of a little bit of Source. Before Source came out was when I played it the most, though. And Quake 3 was my jam just because there were so many modifications for it that you could play it differently every time you played it. Rocket Arena got big. Team Fortress was big. A lot of those, but they still all have that same. What are you chasing after? And it's that ego that you talk about. All those games to me, that's all it seems like it's chasing. And if you know anything about at least either of the two of us, we don't really have much of an ego to speak of, except when we're talking passionately about that one video game that we love and why we love it. But I that's probably why neither one of us really gets into these online games as much as many other people do.
Yeah, I'm sure the round three guys have some input on that as well.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure they're not chasing after just ego.
No,
Like they
no,
want to
no,
be the
yeah.
best of the best. And I totally respect that. I don't want to make it sound like I look down on that. I don't.
Right.
I watch Evo every year. I love watching competition and fighting games. But with shooters and MOBAs, I just feel like it takes way too much investment to get proficient at the game, at a competitive level. And I don't really think there's an offline option for those MOBAs. Like I don't
Right.
think there is any at all. And
The O in MOBA stands for online, so yeah, probably not.
okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Like, it'd be kind of interesting to explore like a single player option, to make it more accessible, but I don't think that's going to happen
Yeah.
because that's the trend now. Everybody has to be competing against each other in big teams and, battle royales and stuff. And, I wish I could get into that, but I think it's just something that's past my prime, so to speak. Like I just can't get into that stuff.
Yeah, for me, it's a lot of it's that for me, but I also have such a short attention span for a video game that I can never get. I can get good at some video games, but I can never get good enough to compete on the same level as other people that are playing to compete. So I was an early adopter of Rocket League when that game first came out. I played the shit out of it, and it was when you'd watch somebody launch into the air to hit a ball and be amazed because there was like 5% of the community that could do that at the time. And now you just watch a standard 4v4 game on Rocket League and everybody's flying every direction. I'm like, when the shit did this happen?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, I'm past my prime with video games, like you were just saying. And
Yeah.
that it's for a different audience now.
Yeah, like in your early 20s, yeah, you can pick up a game and learn the hell out of it and be good at it. But, as you're getting into your late 30s, 40s, yeah, that's not going to happen. I'm sure lots of people can relate to that.
Yeah.
Like for me, the only experience I really have with the MOBA was Hero of the Storm. And I did that for the World of Warcraft mount.
Naturally, that makes sense.
And they had to, grind out, I think it was 10, 15, or 20 games. And
Ugh.
it was the worst experience of my life. I would never do it again.
Hey, you've played 15, 20 more games of MOBA than I have, so at least you have some experience to be talking shit about it, whereas I just like to talk shit.
It's incredible to say that in those 10 to 20 games, I did not get any better. I don't know why. Like, I felt like I played, a round, diverse cast of characters. Like, they include all the Blizzard titles, all the franchises between StarCraft, Warcraft, and
Diablo.
what's the third one? Diablo. Thank you. And
the good one. Come on, man.
I know.
I'm just kidding.
Well, shit. That's another one. Diablo 3. I never played Diablo 3. That's another game I never tried, so I probably need to do so soon.
I will tell you, if you're wanting to honestly give Diablo 3 a shot and just want to go about it casually, the way that I'd recommend playing it's going to sound insane coming from a PC player like me, but I would recommend it on the PlayStation or the Switch.
Oh, okay.
That game is made for a controller. It's so simplistic compared to Diablo 2 that everything fits on a controller perfectly. And like the menu system is a little clunky with a controller, but not very clunky. It's definitely easy with the mouse and keyboard, but they simplify enough of the UI elements on the console version that, it's Blizzard, they're going to do that. They're trying to make it accessible to as many people as possible. So if you're just wanting to try Diablo 3, you could probably get it cheap or probably free at some point if you have PlayStation Plus. But I'd recommend trying it on console and just sitting back, with a drink, your drink of choice next to you, and just chill out and play it. No. Whether it's Coors Light or it's some Lipton Brisk iced tea, whatever it is. We're not sponsored by Anheuser-Busch or PepsiCo. Just throwing that out there. Honestly, my most favorite way of playing Diablo 3 because of just the way the game is made is playing it on the console.
No, I agree with that as well. Like I was thinking a bit more about that when you were mentioning it. Like just the divide between console and PC and the types of postures you have to assume when playing.
Yeah. Like right now, I'm like trying to still, every time we record a podcast for like, we're going over 30 minutes right now. I'm almost hitting 40. I'm like repositioning my legs, stretching out my shoulders, moving my headphones around. When you're playing on a console, you just
kick back and relax. Yep.
Yeah. Exactly.
Young gamers beware. You don't know what's coming.
Yeah, the back thing, man. Having a bad back in your 30s, yeah, fuck that.
Like I'm slouched over right now. Like this is me, straight up. Yeah. But I'm just like,
it's kind of sad, but yeah,
another topic for another time, I think.
Yeah, gaming in your 30s versus your teens and 20s.
Frank posted this tweet the other day about how he is 18 years away from when he graduated and how there's 18-year-olds now graduating from when they were not even born. He was like, God, I feel old. And I was like, yep, me too.
Yeah. we're nearly at that same point that he was just talking about. So,
I know. Yep, almost a couple more years for me
oh man,
and you.
you want to talk about kids and how games got really popular for a little bit of time. Among Us and Fall Guys.
Oh, okay.
Those were
I
short-lived,
Yeah, yeah.
but they got really popular. And I've never played Fall Guys, and I think I tried 2 or 3 rounds of Among Us with our circle of friends on Discord.
Yeah, I actually, was really interested in those two titles because of streaming. Like a lot of my favorite streamers were playing Among Us, and I always wanted to try it because it looked fun. But of course, because of how exposed it was or covered it was, I guess, all of the gameplay styles that you could think of were on display. And it just died out really fast because, it's such a limited game. You can't really do much more than what the popular streamers are doing. And, they're known for their antics and stuff. But
Right.
so if you're just a casual player going to a random game, you don't get that experience. You get
It's
something totally different, and
it's
it's
the
not the
Rust
same.
thing all over again.
Exactly. Yeah. And same with, well, Fall Guys, I think, isn't as much of
No.
a deterrent for that
Right.
because, you can just pick up and play. Like, it's a battle royale essentially,
Yeah.
and, much more easier to play than a game like Among Us. Did you ever play Fall Guys? You said no.
No, I watched my wife play it quite a bit though.
It went free to play, so you can check it out if you want to.
Yeah, I still think free's a little too much. Like if they want to pay me for the time it takes me to install and download and play a couple rounds of the game, then I might play it, but I don't think they need me to play it and I don't need the game. So, I think it's a mutually beneficial arrangement for me to not play it.
All right. Well, the next game that I know I'm going to get shit for from Frank that he loves, but I just cannot, I just can't stand him anymore is Pokemon. The Pokemon games, yeah, they are pretty much, in my opinion, some of the worst games you could play
Ooh.
because of the lack of innovation in the franchise. Like it's just the same thing over and over, same gameplay loop. And I know it's more complex than that because of the different types of Pokemon and the attacks that you can teach them. But the base game play loop of just going around and collecting and fighting trainers, it's just getting tiring, I feel like. And I stopped playing these games in, Pokemon Gold and Silver way back in 2000. So, I'm not the end all be all here of the authority on Pokemon,
You don't
but
have to backtrack. If you have a strong opinion about Pokemon, this is your platform, man. Let it out.
I mean, after Gen 1 and 2, I still kept up to date on Pokemon. Like, I would check out the new generations and what they would look like. And to me, they've gotten more and more ridiculous. I don't feel like they're necessarily, what's the word I'm trying to think of here? Like, they're not genuine. I feel like they're just zany at this point.
Okay.
Like, there was a Pokemon I saw that was just ridiculous in the Sun and Moon era. Like I was watching my wife play the game and watch the Pokemon anime. And some of these Pokemon just look ridiculous. Like
Yeah.
they don't even look like animals anymore. They look like humanoid creatures. And it's like,
I think they ran out of ideas.
why? They don't look like animals. They just look like all sorts of crazy things. And I think it's just way out there.
I think that's a thumbnail.
What's that?
I think that a picture of a random zany Pokemon would be the thumbnail for this podcast.
Well, I mean, you got in Sword Shield, right? You got Score Bunny, but by the end of its evolution cycle, it's a straight up boxer that looks like a human. I'm like, what is this? Like, why? I
Uh,
don't get it, Kevin.
I couldn't give you an answer. I think they just ran out of ideas and they were just. I think it's like that. Was it South Park that said that had that episode where they were trying to think of episodes for like The Simpsons or something, and they were just like having a seal grab a ball, and that had the idea that like or something. I don't know. Basically they're just throwing a dart and see what it
I
hits.
mean, I give Nintendo a lot of credit and Game Freak a lot of credit for continuing to make 150 plus Pokemon each generation. That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Like that's insane. But because of that, because of that huge task of designing these Pokemon, the gameplay suffers for it, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
I-
It's just the same shit over and over.
It
And I've expressed my, thoughts on this a lot throughout the years on this podcast. Like they need to make, new genres of Pokemon, like types of gameplay. Like say like an MMO Pokemon. That would be incredible. Like iterate on that. Like focus on the player, not the actual Pokemon property.
the,
And they could profit a lot.
I mean they took a chance with Arceus. Um I think making it more based on you playing as the character rather than it being focused on the Pokemon. Granted, it's not exactly what you're talking about. I agree with you. Pokemon is some of the most boring shit that there is out there as far as video games go. It's up there with Dark Souls for me. As
Well,
I'm sorry, I was just to push your buttons a little bit.
I see your point. Yes.
Like Pokemon doesn't iterate because they still keep making money doing the same old thing over and over again. You'll have the backlash from the hardcore fan base as you do with anything online. But overall money talks, and their games are
That's
still
the sad
selling.
truth behind it.
Yeah.
The games are so highly successful. They don't have to innovate them
Right.
because they're already huge profit centers for their company.
But then
And
it's so sorry, but it's insane to me that Pokemon doesn't iterate, but you've got Zelda and you've got Mario that are both
exactly.
tentpoles of Nintendo, that there are almost
Right.
no two games that are the same. They
That
iterate
is
every time.
that is exactly my point. Like Pokemon has the capital to take these risks, but they don't do it.
Right.
And that's why I dislike the franchise now so much.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. To me, I like playing the first 3 hours of a Pokemon game because they're very relaxing. It's more or less a Zen game for me, kind of like in
Okay.
the same vein as No Man's Sky or Diablo 3 on a couch. They're just Zen games where I can kind of not really focus on what I'm doing, not have to pay too much attention. But then when you get into like the min-maxing of collecting and pitting them against each other to try to have like the best team with you for the specific gym that you're in and try that doesn't, it's like trying to make a build in an MMO that's based on one action so that you can fit in with the group of players that you're playing with. That I have no desire to do that with my video games. I'm playing, to have fun, to zone out, to just chill, but there's so much min-maxing involved in so many games that the
That
hardcore,
too.
yeah,
The community for Pokemon, they are not as toxic as other fan bases,
right.
but when it comes to min-maxing, like there's like a whole level for that now for Pokemon. And, they'll always be like a tier list. And if you don't follow that, you're not going to be as successful as, say, the top player that does follow the meta. And, Pokemon isn't, you know, uh, adverse to experimenting. Like we've seen a lot of spin-off games for Pokemon, which I commend them for, but usually they're made by different developers and not necessarily by Game Freak themselves. I have to make this clear. Like I'm strictly talking about the main games. Like I have no problem with the spin-offs. I think they're great for what they are. But the main franchise of Pokemon has to do something different.
Yep.
And with Scarlet Violet coming out, it just looks like more of the same. And it's a shame. I think it could really go in a different direction and be even more successful if they were to take more risks.
I think they really had that opportunity with Sword and Shield and dropped the ball because it was the first one that wasn't exclusive to a handheld console. Like
Exactly. Yeah.
the Switch is a handheld, but it's also, like, I've been preaching, the Switch is the most versatile system that there is out there, unless you have a Steam Deck or something. But it's yeah, the first one on that kind of really set the tone for what Nintendo Switch Pokemon games are going to be for the next 5-6 years, however long the Switch's life cycle ends up being. And yeah, between that and then Arceus kind of setting the tone for the next generation of Pokemon games, it's not enough variation. I agree.
I just think they have so much more potential. Like just not as a development studio, but just Nintendo in general. Like they could do so much more with their franchises, which we've seen a little bit of with Mario Odyssey and Zelda Breath of the Wild. I know you didn't like that game, but for me as a Zelda fan, it was great. It was a literal breath of fresh air.
I see what you did there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. uh,
And aside from that, I'm depleted, so
um, I didn't really talk about Mario Kart when I was talking about Smash Bros. And Mario Party,
oh,
but I also
sure.
can't stand. I like some racing games. I don't like the kart racing games. Besides maybe Diddy Kong Racing on the 64 because it was so different at the time, and I have some fond memories of that. I don't know what it is about the Nintendo 64, but it was like the best generation of racing games in my opinion. Like I didn't mind Mario Kart 64. Cruise USA was great. The San Francisco Rush series was great, and yeah, the racing games on the N64 were just one more.
One more.
What am I missing?
F-Zero.
You know what? I actually never played that. At least back on the day. I've
Oh man.
emulated it later on in life, but I never got
Yeah.
the feeling of playing that on the N64.
So good, man.
I,
And GX on the GameCube was incredible.
nice.
Yeah.
I love the F-Zero arcade game when you're sitting in the like racing pod.
That's GX. Yeah.
Okay.
That's the arcade port of it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's
it was
a lot
amazing.
of fun. F-Zero is probably the coolest racing. I say cool loosely, but the coolest racing franchise because it's so different than all the other racing games that are out there.
Are we gonna just, do an all encompassing sports games?
I don't think that's necessary. I don't think most people. I don't think that sports games are as popular as their sales numbers would lead us to believe that they are.
Oh, you
Because
think so?
I think it's the same people that are buying them every year, and they have to buy all the mainline ones, which FIFA is now not going to be partnered with EA, so the EA's soccer game might
Huge.
actually sell pretty well next year, or it could like totally fall off the deep end. I'm really curious to see which way it goes if it's not going to be FIFA branded. But I wonder what that would look like. But I also don't give a shit.
Exactly. Sports games.
Racing games I consider different than sports games because racing isn't necessarily a sport in the way that video games portray racing. Like when you're talking about Forza Motorsport, that's a sports racing game. But when you have Forza Horizon, that is an open world exploration game with racing elements. Like there's different variations. Mario Kart isn't a sports game. Mario Kart is a party game to me.
I agree. Yeah,
So
I agree.
I wouldn't just put an all-encompassing sports game that includes all the racing titles, but yeah, it's about there.
With Mario Kart in particular, again, that's straight up a party game. That's always a fun time for me, and I never get tired of that formula. But straight up, realistic racing games like, say, Gran Turismo or Forza, as you mentioned, like I just cannot get into those. I just don't have any sort of desire to play those games. And this goes back to my dad being a car enthusiast and me never taking to it. So take that as you will.
Yeah, the games where you where you're fine tuning each individual component of your car.
Yeah.
I don't get into that
I don't
either.
give a shit about that. Yeah, like it doesn't do anything for me.
But then I'll play a game where you modify each individual piece of armor or equipment that you're wearing in the same way, and it's like, okay, this I like, but the other I don't. It's all in how the game portrays what you're doing, I suppose.
There's aspects of that in other games like open world games like Grand Theft Auto where I do like customizing my vehicle and what I get to drive around in.
But that's more the
because
appearance of it, right?
exactly, yeah, it's the appearance, not the performance of it.
Gotcha. Totally shifting gears. The last one that I have on my list, I saved for last because I know that Kyle has a lot of good things to say about Resident Evil and Silent Hill.
Oh wow, okay. I was expecting Souls-like games, but
no,
okay.
I figured I talked enough shit about those already. I don't like Soul.
Okay.
I said that
Survival
I tried
horror.
The Surge or whatever, but yes, any survival horror games.
Okay.
I tried Dead Space. I didn't care for it. I've tried a couple Silent Hill, Parasite Eve, and maybe a Resident Evil game. I can't get into those. the atmosphere doesn't excite me. And every time I start talking about how I don't like these games, I think of that clip from The Office with Angela saying, "I don't like being titillated." That's exactly what I think every time, that because I know that that's probably the appeal of these kinds of games, is that titillation, if you will, of like what's behind the next corner, and am I gonna get the shit scared out of me?
No, it's not for everybody. Survival horror is a really niche genre, but for me, what I enjoy most about it is the psychological aspect of it. Like you get immersed, that like the atmosphere alone, like how video games can pull you into the game. That's what I really love about survival horror in particular. It makes you, well, for me anyway, it makes me feel like I'm inside of the game because you have to pay more attention to sound design and also with lighting and trying to obscure the threat so you don't necessarily have a good grasp on what is trying to kill you. And for me, that's exciting as a player because, usually with most video games, you see your objective or your enemy or whatever, and you know how to approach that. It's different. It's not as threatening. But in survival horror, you have to, ask yourself questions like, what do I need to take with me? Like, what will aid me in the future? There's a lot of decision making that goes on in those games that you probably don't realize, on a fundamental or psychological level. Like, you have to constantly weigh your resources against what you have to face ahead of you. And that to me is what makes survival horror games really fun.
I just don't like being in the dark, man.
And
I'm mostly kidding.
I say this, right? And that's kind of like what a survival game is too. But, from the horrors thrown into it, like it's a different type of genre.
Yeah,
Like it's not quite the same because, you're collecting resources in survival games with the aspect of, okay, I need to do this to get this so I could build this and then I could build this. And what does that really achieve? It's just you gaining mastery over your environment. But in survival horror, you don't have that control of the environment. The environment is oppressive
right.
and you have to, conquer it to beat the game, so to speak.
That makes
That's where the
sense.
thrill comes from.
See, and for me with the survival, like the plain Jane survival games, I don't necessarily like them either. But when I do get into one for a little bit, I think I've talked about it before. It's that having that task list and checking off the task to be able to go on to the next one. I love that feeling. So when I play a game like Don't Starve, which I didn't really care for it when I played it either, but when I play a game like it, I like being able to see 3 steps ahead, being like, okay, I need to plan for this so that I can do that and the other thing. And that kind of, we talked about it a lot in the chores versus whatever it was, the chores in video games. Uh, I talked about how I kind of like that some of that stuff because it's the satisfaction that I get from accomplishing something so that I can go to the next task, to the next one, to the next one. It's, I don't know. It sits well in my brain, like just being able to mentally check things off. I don't know what it is specifically about it, but it feels good.
This could be another topic for another time, but you can, compare the different types of games to each other by the type of narrative it gives you. Like for survival horror, there's always a story tied to it. Whereas with like an open world survival game,
You
it's
make your
up
own
to you
story. Yeah.
to make your own story. And, there's times where I enjoy that. One great example of that is Red Dead Redemption. Like I loved just doing my own thing in those games aside of the main story and just interacting with the world itself and just making my own fun in it. But with those typical survival games, like you don't really have that much freedom to make your own stories in those kind of games unless you have a solid community to build around,
Right.
like we saw with Rust or whatever. And to me, that's the main deterrent for me for getting into that particular genre.
I think that's the best thing about video games, though, honestly, is that there's
Yeah.
such a variety in not just games to play, but ways to play those games as well. Uh, so a list like this, while we sound like we're kind of getting down on a bunch of different video games, we do it knowing that they're already popular video games that we just don't like, and the problem is with us. So
Exactly. Yep.
that,
That's why we have these discussions. I
yeah,
think it helps illuminate like each of our own tastes in gaming.
Yeah.
But it also separates other people from that as well, and also creates a dynamic in the community of video games as a whole.
Yeah. I really, really want to know, and I'm going to rant at you listeners really quickly. I don't see a whole lot of responses from you guys on the questions that we ask at the end of these episodes, but I really am genuinely curious when I ask these questions, and I really want to know what kind of games or what specific games that everybody else seems to like that you don't like. What do you have to add to this conversation? Because it's a really fascinating conversation that I think we could go on for another probably 3 hours about. Even though we said that our lists were dried up, there's still enough conversation to be had here to keep it going.
Like,
So, if you guys want to keep the conversation going with us, all of our social media accounts and everything's down below in the details. And yeah, we really appreciate you hanging out with us while we talked about this.
and please leave a review. It will help Frank and the crew, as well as us, immensely. And any support we get from you guys doesn't go unnoticed. We'll give you a shout out.
Yep, and it's the fastest and most free way of supporting us. So yeah, please do that. Leave a review in whatever podcast listening app you're listening to this podcast on. I don't know why I turned into a robot, but it's been an hour, so I think it's robot time. Anyway, thanks for listening. Hope you join us next week, and until then, love you.